Previously, I made 2 videos going over an alternate universe where Marvel sold the opposite rights, meaning they sold the rights to the Avengers but kept Spider-Man, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four. We saw that world's Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Fox Avengers movies, but then there's Sony Pictures. In a world where Marvel didn't have to sell the rights to their biggest characters, Sony, only really interested in their biggest, Spider-Man, were negotiated down to Marvel's second biggest character, Wolverine, separate from the X-Men. In this video, I'll be going over everything that Sony did with Wolverine, leading into them making a deal with Marvel, and then all these spin-offs and masterpiece animated movies they made later on, all the way up until the present day. Make sure to subscribe and sign up for a membership. Anybody in the Noble tier or above gets early access to videos. For instance, this video, if you were in the Noble tier or above, you got to see it a couple days early. And also, special thanks to my highest tier members, I really appreciate the support. Let's get started. Sony entered the Marvel movie space early with 2002's Wolverine, starring Hugh Jackman as the titular character, and telling a story based on what was known about the character at the time, which was far more limited in terms of his origin compared to Spider-Man. His origin comic, which revealed his name is James Howlett, released through 2000 and 2001, and then was expanded upon in 2006. Because of this, Wolverine wouldn't have an original trilogy exactly like Spider-Man. His origin would be mostly skipped, and when it is shown, it will not be chronologically. Wolverine follows a man with no knowledge of his past as he wakes up in the snowy Canadian wilderness with metal claws coming out of his hands. He soon meets a woman named Silver Fox and is accepted into her tribe. Silver Fox teaches him how to live, and the two fall in love. He's given the name Wolverine by the tribe because every member of the tribe has an animal-based name, and he is particularly animalistic. Along the way, Wolverine is haunted by a beast who he soon learns is Sabretooth, a man from his unknown past, played by Tyler Mane. Wolverine then learns that he was a man named Logan and that he and Sabretooth were recipients of the Weapon X program, a program that set out to expand human capabilities and create super soldiers. Mutants, however, are not allowed to be referenced. Sabretooth tricks Wolverine into teaming up with him, and the two kill everyone at Weapon X. Wolverine then learns that his real name was Logan, but he doesn't learn his last name. This would be a deviation from the comics, where Logan was a fake identity, but also James Howlett would be revealed as his real name during or even after this movie was already written. This name change could then be considered the counterpart to Raimi Spider-Man having organic webbing, a deviation from the comics that does simplify things. Logan then learns that he actually volunteered for the program. He was meant to be a super soldier and finds a suit made for him to wear. The Sony movies never shied away from comic booky designs, so Wolverine with a full yellow suit and mask would be around from the get-go in this franchise. When Logan learns that he was tricked into killing the members of Weapon X and that he actually volunteered, he and Sabretooth fight, ending in Sabretooth's death. Ashamed of his murderous path, Logan abandons Silver Fox and the tribe and sets out to find more answers regarding the mysteries of the Weapon X program. The movie is beloved and hugely successful, kickstarting a long franchise that lasts at least a few decades. Wolverine 2 comes out in the year 2004 and ends up being considered the best of the original trilogy, best ever by many for a while. We follow Logan as he tries tracking down the remnants of the Weapon X program, but while doing so, he is attacked by a man named Donald Pierce and his cybernetically enhanced mercenaries, seeking revenge for Wolverine killing the men behind the Weapon X program, one of which was Donald's father. Logan swore off killing by the end of the last movie and does everything he can to incapacitate or knock out his enemies, but as he's pushed into a corner, Logan is forced to kill Donald. Following this, he goes into a berserker rage and kills all the mercenaries. This movie basically deals with a man made for killing doing his best to avoid it, ultimately failing and then being torn up over it. Now, I said earlier that Sony wasn't interested in anyone but Marvel's biggest character. Well, that isn't exactly true. Alongside Wolverine, they also purchased the rights to Doctor Strange and made 2 movies surrounding the character. The same year as the upcoming Wolverine 3, which is 2007, Doctor Strange stars Benedict Cumberbatch as a bit of a younger Stephen Strange compared to the real-world MCU, in a movie that does tell a similar story to the real-world Doctor Strange, but it's far worse. Stephen Strange is a highly successful surgeon who gets into an accident that destroys his hands. Seeking anything to fix him, he finds the Ancient One and becomes Doctor Strange. There's no time stone, no alternate dimensions, no Dormammu, and is generally a lot less colorful. In this story, Strange joins Kamar-Taj just in time to stop Baron Mordo from taking over. Mordo does kill the Ancient One, but then Doctor Strange takes over as Sorcerer Supreme, defeats Mordo, and is appointed to guard the Sanctum Sanctorum alongside Wong. This movie is not very good despite the good casting. The movie also doesn't do very well, but does manage to scrape by enough money to warrant a sequel. We'll get to it. Wolverine 3 is released in 2007, and while still hugely successful financially, it is considered easily the worst in the trilogy. Logan's search for answers regarding the Weapon X program leads him to Japan, where he finds out the program's true origins. Turns out it was created by a man named Kenichio Harada, aka the Silver Samurai. He created it alongside the Canadian government under the false pretenses of creating super soldiers. His true motive was to invent immortality. Wolverine learns that he was born in the 1900s, making him currently around 100 years old. The procedure apparently worked, except for the side effect of wiping memory. The Weapon X program dates back to the 1940s, but was abandoned after it seemed unsuccessful. Logan and Sabretooth were the only survivors of the program, but they then wandered the wilderness for decades. Logan's return then leads the Silver Samurai to reopening the program in order to extract his powers for himself. Logan is tricked into a trap, and Silver Samurai takes his powers. This turns Wolverine feral. Meanwhile, Silver Fox resurfaces, having followed Wolverine to Japan. She attacks him for abandoning her, but is then hit by something that takes away her memories of exactly what needed to be erased, so that later she can remember, but then also become an ally. There's also Viper, a poison-based terrorist attacking Japan for no reason that connects to anything else, but in middle of the movie, the feral Wolverine beats her nearly to death. Eventually, feral Wolverine manages to retake control and returns to being regular Wolverine. Viper and Silver Samurai team up to kill him. Logan is overwhelmed until Silver Fox joins the fight. They kill Silver Samurai and defeat Viper, but Silver Fox does also die along the way. Thus ends the original Wolverine trilogy. Although there was a Wolverine 4 in development, it was, however, cancelled in favor of a reboot. No new movies released until 2012, which is also then a repeat of 2007, with one Doctor Strange movie followed by one Wolverine movie. Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, shows Strange facing off against another evil sorcerer named Caecilius, as he tries to bring about the return of his master and the Ancient One's mortal enemy, Dormammu. He succeeds, but Dormammu just looks like a regular person who has fire-based magical powers. Ultimately, though, Strange defeats Caecilius and Dormammu, and the day is saved. This sequel is generally disliked, considered even worse than the already not very good first movie, does poorly at the box office, and kills the franchise over at Sony. Sony then does nothing with Doctor Strange for a little while, which, according to their deal, means the rights revert to Marvel. While Sony does give up on Doctor Strange, they will never give up on Wolverine. Also in 2012, The Wolverine reboots the franchise with a gritty retelling of his origin alongside a recast. Wolverine, now played by Henry Cavill, is indeed James Howlett in this version. We see him being born in the 1800s, and for some unexplained reason, because there's no such thing as mutants, he's born with bone claws and healing factor and doesn't age. It'll be hinted, however, that it has something to do with his parents. His parents are given large roles in these movies as big parts of the lore. During his origin story, one day his parents go on a hike and never return. Shortly after their disappearance, a friend of theirs, Paul Cartier, went to search for them, only to be trapped by the harsh weather. He then finds the Howlett's frozen bodies, and after being trapped for days, is forced to eat them. There will be revealed to be an ancient curse on the Canadian wilderness that turns anyone who eats human flesh into the monstrous Wendigo. Paul, now a Wendigo, spends the next century and a half surviving in the wilderness, becoming a local Bigfoot-style myth. James grows up and survives all the way until the present day. Feeling oddly nostalgic and wanting closure for his parents, he returns to his hometown, only to then find out about the local myth of the Wendigo. It'll be revealed that the local myth of the Wendigo also includes a hero that will take him down, a hero that can turn into a Wolverine, which is where the name comes from. As the legend of the Wolverine grew, a festival came out of it, costumes came out of it, and the suit that Wolverine wears in this movie comes from one of those festivals in this town. James goes into the wilderness and tracks down the Wendigo, but in doing so unleashes a beast that, up until now, kept mostly to himself. James will find his parents' clothing and thus assume that the Wendigo killed them all the way back then. Eventually, however, Wendigo will somehow show James their true origins, making him a bit sympathetic until another person joins and Wendigo eats him as well, making him even more monstrous. A final battle ends with James killing Wendigo, but being knocked out in the process. Before he can wake back up, James is taken by a man named Abraham Cornelius, setting him up for the Weapon X program. time. The Wolverine gets mixed to positive reviews, and while it doesn't do as well as Wolverine 3, it definitely does make money, enough that it warrants a sequel. But not just that, that same year, the big crossover movie Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four releases and does massive numbers, prompting Sony to want to get in on the cinematic universe action. The cinematic universe idea would then be the driving force behind the sequel, The Wolverine 2. James is forced into the Weapon X program and gets adamantium claws. They ask him who he is, but he refuses to tell them his name. They call him Logan as a random name. Weapon X wipes his memory, now known as Logan, aka the Wolverine. He's sent on missions by the government alongside the group Team X, which includes other recipients of the Weapon X program. It's hinted that the Weapon X program dates all the way back to the 1800s and was created by Wolverine's parents. It's also hinted that James was given some sort of vitamin or serum by his parents when he was a child, which is where his powers come from. The program also has many more recipients. Some have roles in these movies, while others are set up for future movies, all given a shared origin they did not have in the comics. Included in this are Gorgon, Lady Deathstrike, and Roughhouse, but set up for sequels are Omega Red and Sabretooth. The movie follows Wolverine as a part of Team X alongside Lady Deathstrike and Roughhouse as they face off against the Hand and their leader Gorgon, a former member of Team X and another recipient of the Weapon X program. The Hand would be to Wolverine what Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and the Skrulls are to the Avengers. Their rights are shared with Marvel, since the Hand are the enemies of Daredevil, but also, prominently enough, Wolverine. While fighting the Hand, Logan meets a member of theirs named Mariko. They fall in love and she turns against the Hand for him. This all ends with Gorgon's defeat, following which the Hand's second in command, Matsuo Tsurayaba, takes over and kills Mariko. Wolverine kills Tsurayaba and takes down the Hand while slowly learning about his past along the way. He then sets out on his own without Team X. He doesn't, however, take back his old name, not really feeling attached to it anymore. He is now Logan, aka Wolverine. Leading into the Wolverine 2, Sony announces or has rumored to have in development many sequels and many spin-offs meant to be set in this world. The Wolverine 3, a Yukio movie, a movie about Wolverine's dad, a movie about Albert, the cyborg Wolverine, a movie about Tiger, one about Silver Fox, one about Viper, and a movie about the Reavers. Unfortunately for Sony, they had this huge hack that put everything in the air, and secondly, while the Wolverine 2 did do well, it got bad reviews and didn't do as well as they had hoped. All of those movies were cancelled, and the following year, Sony made a deal with Marvel to allow Wolverine to be used in the MCU. From this, we got all the Wolverine movies and appearances I mentioned in the original video, but Sony did not stop making their own Wolverine movies. In fact, they ramped it up. This all begins in 2018 with Sony making a spin-off movie about Wolverine's most recognizable villain, Sabretooth. This version of Sabretooth, however, has nothing to do with any version of Wolverine. Victor Creed is played by Jason Momoa and is given a different origin that is unrelated to Wolverine or mutants in general. He is the son of a man who had his DNA spliced with the remains of a saber-toothed tiger. That man, Zebediah Creed, had two sons, Victor and Saul. They grew up with the same abilities and grew a rivalry which peaked when Saul, a psychopath, killed their parents. Throughout the movie, Sabretooth tracks Saul down and eventually kills him, all the while being shown in a sympathetic light, barely even an anti-hero. He's kind of just a hero. This movie isn't great, but does make a lot of money, setting up a trilogy. That same year, Sony would release easily their best movie yet, maybe ever, Wolverine and X-23, a child-friendly 3D animated movie that reinvents modern animation while cementing Laura Kinney as the successor to the Wolverine mantle. The movie shows an alternate dimension which has the perfect Wolverine. He's a world-renowned hero, married to Mariko, and generally very happy. Things start to go wrong when Wolverine learns that he has a son named Daken who is out for revenge. He also learns that he was cloned into a female body. Laura Kinney, the true protagonist of the movie, is taught how to be a hero by Wolverine as they team up against Daken. Along the way, they form a father-daughter relationship. Unfortunately, Daken takes advantage of his father's goodness and kills him. Laura becomes Wolverine and avenges her father by taking Daken down. This movie in concept and in story is certainly a lot more similar to Logan than the Spider-Verse movies, but Wolverine doesn't have a Spider-Verse in the comics. They wouldn't jump into the multiverse off the bat. That said, this movie does tease that going forward. The multiverse will get involved in the sequel, it'll just be a more gradual build-up. Either way, directly inverted from Sabretooth, this movie is a masterpiece, but doesn't do very well at the box office. Thankfully, it does well enough and gets a sequel. Up until now, I've only talked about up until the year 2020, since the Infinity Saga's equivalent, like the real-world Infinity Saga, only took took place up until the year 2019, while the Fox X-Men movies equivalents, the Fox Avengers movies, lasted until 2020. That said, Sony is just getting started, and I have to go over all of the spin-offs leading into the present day, so this video will be going forward till 2026. In early 2020, a teaser trailer would be released for a movie called Bloodscream about the vampire Wolverine villain played by Jared Leto. That movie was delayed though, so before that comes out in 2021, we'd get Sabretooth Romulus, which reveals that Sabretooth's father had his DNA spliced by a man named Romulus. Romulus is a genius thousands of years old and is the sole survivor of a race of people who evolved from canines instead of primates. Romulus manipulates people into being experimented on so that he can build an army of non-humans to destroy humanity. One of those people was Zebediah Creed, Sabretooth's father. Sabretooth is tracked down by Romulus to join his army. Sabretooth refuses, creating a conflict that ends with Sabretooth killing Romulus. It's a pretty simple movie, gets worse reviews than the first and makes less money, but is definitely a financial success. A Sabretooth trilogy is now guaranteed. In late 2021, a second trailer for Bloodscream releases, which would be an interesting one. In this trailer, Bloodscream name drops Sabretooth, the MCU version of Omega Red appears, and an image of the Raimi Wolverine, but from the PS4 Wolverine video game is shown. Just a bunch of nonsensical connections that somehow make even less sense in the actual movie. We'll get to it. Then, in December 2021, Wolverine the Best There Is would be this world's equivalent to Spider-Man No Way Home. To recap, the MCU's version of Wolverine has gone through a lot. He's played by Daniel Radcliffe, was born in the 1800s as James Howlett, was then put through the Weapon X program in the 1950s, and then was largely used as a weapon in the Cold War against Russia, going under the radar on espionage missions that culminate in him fighting Omega Red alongside his brother Sabretooth. Sabretooth turned on him and shot him with an adamantium bullet. He then lived as a recluse named Logan until Scarlet Witch restored some of his memories and brought him back into the fold in order to kill Jean Grey, who was about to become the Phoenix. He then joins the X-Men, helps fight Doctor Doom, goes to Battleworld, and helps save the world. Finally, the last movie was Wolverine Days of Future Past. Logan, from 10 years down the line, returns to the present to stop the extinction of the mutants. He succeeded and then took over the past Wolverine's body. Those timeline shenanigans, however, came with a price, as it broke through a barrier in the multiverse that focuses on Wolverine. Getting help from some of the X-Men, Wolverine fails to prevent multiversal variants coming through, specifically the main villains of the first 5 Wolverine movies from right before they died. Tyler Mane's Sabretooth, Boyd Holbrook's Donald Pierce, Hal Yamanouchi's Silver Samurai, Ray Fiennes' Wendigo, and Will Yun-Lee's Gorgon. These 5 villains team up to find a way to get back, but then when they learn that when they return they will die, they fight to remain. Their mere presences, however, break the fabric of the universe. Then, as things escalate, the other 2 Wolverines arrive as well. Hugh Jackman in his yellow and blue suit, and Henry Cavill in his brown and yellow suit, while Daniel Radcliffe primarily wears the gray suit. The Wolverines team up while the X-Men keep the universe from collapsing. Daniel Radcliffe's Wolverine is made fun of by the others for being shorter, while they talk about how weird it is that Raimi's Wolverine's real name is Logan. This leads into a final fight between the Wolverines against Wolverine villains, ending in them managing to send all of the villains back to their worlds, and the Wolverines, having bonded, returning as well. In order to accomplish this, however, Logan is forced to agree to have everyone's memories of him erased. The opposite of what most Wolverines deal with up until now. He's not the one forgetting things, everybody else is. Wolverine sets out on his own, now without the X-Men again, as his life will never be the same. The end credit scene shows that Jason Momoa's Sabretooth also came to this world, but didn't do anything and was then just sent back. This movie is loved, brings competing fandoms together, and makes almost $2 billion, which basically funds the next few years of failures as the mainline Wolverine franchise does take a few years off. This would then also connect to Bloodscream, finally releasing in 2022. It's absolutely horrendous and also kind of breaks this world. In this movie, Zachariah Ravenscraft becomes a vampire and fights the man who turned him into a vampire, Dagu. This movie is extremely generic. There's a plot point that is dropped in the middle, and the marketing was just complete and utter lies. There's no Wolverine, and the MCU Omega Red is only in the end credit scene, in which he's sent to this other universe and subsequently released from prison. He then approaches Bloodscream, says he doesn't know how he got here, but thinks that has something to do with Wolverine, and and that they should team up because they do some good, that will never happen. Bloodscream does very poorly, but blows up as a meme. The internet becomes obsessed with the phrase, "get ready for a Bloodscream pie." This online traction tricks Sony into re-releasing the movie, adding thousands to their final box office take. This movie is an absolute joke. It honestly makes no sense, but that same studio also releases another masterpiece, Wolverine and the Wolverine Squad, in 2023. In this movie, Laura is revealed to have been Wolverine for a few years now and faced off against a few villains. Now, however, the Donald Pierce of this world creates an android named LCD and another one named Albert and sends them after Laura. Laura is saved by the Wolverine Squad, a group of Wolverines from alternate universes that formed together when Wolverines across the multiverse started to die at an alarming rate. This group consists of Patch, Age of Apocalypse Wolverine, Old Man Logan, and Jimmy Hudson, the Ultimate Wolverine. Laura teams up with these alternate Wolverines to destroy LCD, turn Albert to their side, and take down Donald Pierce. Remember, the escalation of this trilogy is slower, so this movie would be on the level of the first Spider-Verse, where a group of Wolverines from another universe come to this one. Laura will only travel the multiverse and meet the hundreds of Wolverines in the third movie. Because of this movie is also not an incomplete one. It doesn't end on a cliffhanger, even if it does tease a third movie. The movie is just as beloved and far more financially successful than the first. Initially, they said that the third movie would come out the following year, but I don't understand how they ever thought that would ever be possible. It won't come out until maybe 2027, but it's likely going to be worth the wait. The terrible live-action Wolverine-adjacent movies reach a boiling point in 2024 with 3 back-to-back poorly received movies. Although one of them does do well, the other 2 do so poorly it is embarrassing. Scarlet Samurai follows Mariko Yashida as she teams up with a few of the Japanese women that Wolverine has associated himself with in the comics, Lady Deathstrike, Yukio, and Atsuko, to defeat a man named Shingen Yashida. I'll be honest though, I haven't seen the movie, so I don't really know what happened outside of that. This movie is clowned on somehow worse than Bloodscream and makes negative money, but it somehow will get worse. Not yet though, as Sabretooth: The Last Stand releases later that year and is the one success of the year, even if it does make a little bit less than the previous. In this movie, Sabretooth fights his son Graydon, aka Bad Seed, ending in both their deaths, while also somehow teasing a sequel at the same time by setting up the return of Romulus. Even though Sabretooth is dead, I don't think anything will ever come of that. Finally, for 2024 is Agent Zero. Following Daniel Henney as David North, he's powerless but expertly trained in hand-to-hand combat and weaponry to the point of being near superhuman. He was a member of this world's Team X, whose primary missions involve securing adamantium and eliminating others who have it. Mastodon, another member, steals adamantium for himself to enhance himself. Agent Zero is then forced to kill his friend. This movie is considered pretty bad, but where it truly stands out is in its frankly embarrassing box office, taking home a mere $60 million on a $110 million budget, and that doesn't even count marketing, cementing once and for all that while Wolverine is extremely popular and he has one villain who can stand on his own, nobody wants to see the rest without Wolverine present. This brings this terrible era of Wolverine adjacent movies to an apparent end. But Sony still very much has the rights to Wolverine. An Old Man Logan show starring Nicolas Cage releases in 2026 after he voiced him in the animated movies. Also in 2026 would be the 4th MCU Wolverine movie, this one called Wolverine Not Dead Yet, and this one is a bit more down to earth. And then finally a 3rd animated movie called Wolverine vs. the Wolverine Squad releases likely in 2027. Those are all in the future, so I don't know what happens in them. And that's it. Sony's 25-year-long and counting grip hold on the Wolverine franchise. Some bangers and even some masterpieces, but also some absolute dog shit, embarrassing attempts at movies. All things considered though, as long as the main Wolverine movies continue making billions, Sony will never lose the rights, and Wolverine will remain the one and only franchise that Marvel doesn't regain the rights to. Thanks so much for watching.